or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Elizabeth Ortel, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the Wednesday, May 27th issue of the Batavia Daily News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The first article I'd like to read for you is from the front page. Brothers in Arms. Hockey brothers focused on making a difference as ROTC commissioned U.S. Army officers, by Mike Patinella for the Daily News. The Army is lucky to have them. Tracy Hockey speaks those words as the proud mother of 3 close-knit sons who are at different stages of their military careers, built upon each receiving a U.S. Army Reserve Officers Training Corps scholarship. First, there was Michael Jr., a 2020 graduate of Perry Central School and 2024 graduate of Niagara University, who was commissioned into the Army as a second lieutenant upon graduation. Currently, he is a military intelligence officer serving as a platoon leader in the 3rd Brigade, 101st Airborne Division, Air Assault, known as the Rackasans, at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. He recently completed Air Assault School and Army Ranger School. Then came Mitchell, a 2022 graduate of Leroy Central Schools, who on May 15th graduated from Niagara University and is commissioned into the Army as a second lieutenant in military intelligence. He is heading to Fort Huachuca in Arizona for Basic Officer Leadership Court, and upon graduating there, will be stationed at Joint Base Lewis McChord in the state of Washington. Now, there is Matthew, who will graduate from Leroy Central School next month and will begin the same journey at Niagara University and the Army ROTC program in the fall. Their mother, who lives in Leroy, told the Daily News that she is truly proud of her boys and the path they have chosen. We don't know what the future holds, but I do know this will be a journey of growth and resiliency for our entire family, she said. I am also confident all 3 of them will be outstanding leaders. The Army is lucky to have them. Their father, Michael Hockey, lives in Warsaw. The brothers were able to be together at Mitchell's graduation ceremony and commented on their inspiration for pursuing the Army ROTC scholarship and their short and long-term goals. Growing up, I always admired the brave men and women who served our country, Michael said. Throughout our nation's history, countless service members have put their lives on the line, and some made the ultimate sacrifice to defend our freedoms. Hearing stories of that courage and selflessness inspired me to join the military, and it's still what motivates me today. He serves as a leader of a tactical, unmanned aerial systems platoon with about 50 soldiers responsible for mid-range, long-range, and FPV, first-person view, drone systems. Many of these capabilities are relatively new to the Army. And it is challenging and rewarding to help develop how they will be integrated into future battlefield operations. Michael said a goal of his is to become a company executive officer, XO, following his time as platoon leader, and to complete the military intelligence captain career course at Fort Huachuca. My short-term goals are to get married to my fiancée, Lauren, and to earn my expert soldier badge this fall. Mitchell said he was drawn to the sense of purpose, leadership, and service that the Army represents, as well as the military's emphasis on physical fitness, which is something I greatly enjoy. Having an older brother in the military played a big role in shaping that decision. Watching his experiences, growth, and pride he took in serving reinforced my interest and gave me a realistic view of both the challenges that and rewards of military life, he said. I admired the relationships that he formed through shared experiences, and his example helped solidify my decision and gave me someone I could look to for guidance throughout the process. He said his goal is to transition into his role as an officer, learn as much as possible, and become a competent and reliable leader for my soldiers. I also want to pursue continued professional and personal growth, whether that's through advanced schooling, specialized training, or higher levels of leadership. Ultimately, my goal is to leave the Army having made a meaningful difference in the lives of the soldiers with whom I serve. After the basic training officer leader course in Arizona, Mitchell will report to Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington, where he will serve with the 2nd Stryker Brigade Combat Team under the 7th Infantry Division. In this role, I will be leading soldiers, managing equipment and training, and preparing for missions in support of Army operations, he said. With the Army's recent transition to the new multi-domain Command Pacific, which merges the 7th Infantry Division with the 1st Multi-Domain Task Force, the unit is shifting toward a greater focus on operations in the Indo-Pacific region, integrating cyber, space, and long-range fires with traditional ground forces. Youngest brother Matthew said he remembers tagging along as his siblings engaged in volunteer work for military organizations. I have been witnessing their commitment to the military community firsthand for many years. My brothers and I have always had the same interest, so it was natural for me to follow in their footsteps, he said. Matthew acknowledged that being a ROTC cadet is not a traditional college experience. My long-term goal is to make the transition to early morning physical training, military science courses, and ROTC training events effortlessly, he said. Their mom said she's not surprised that they all set their sights on Army ROTC scholarships. They're really each other's best friends, she said. So Mitchell followed Michael's path, and now Matthew is doing the same. Michael set the bar high for them, and everything is a competition with them. They keep scores on each other and keep tabs on what each other is doing. They have a great relationship. There is a really nice picture of the 3 brothers, 2 of them in their uniforms, and the youngest one in a beige-colored suit with a white shirt and a matching striped tie. Just attractive-looking young men. 17 calves missing from Oakfield Farm. Heifers were allegedly taken late Saturday night. This is another story that I'll be reading from the Batavia Daily News. 17 registered Holstein calves were missing from an Oakfield farm after an apparent late-night theft last weekend. Caretakers at Oakfield Corners Dairy discovered the missing 5-month-old heifers Sunday morning upon arriving at a calf barn where they found the gates open and groups mixed together, the farm's co-owner, Alicia Lamb, said Tuesday. Assuming that the calves had broken a gate between pens, employees sorted the calves into their groups, each of which normally has about 10 calves, but discovered 17 animals were missing, she said. It sounds like whoever came and picked them up went to the end of the barn, opened the gate, loaded the trailer, and took off quickly, Lamb said by phone. Security camera footage provided by a neighbor on Lockport Road in Alabama shows a heavy-duty pickup truck pulling a cattle trailer, followed closely by another vehicle at 1:21 a.m. Sunday. Details such as license plate numbers are illegible in the footage. The calves are registered animals with DNA samples recorded, so their identities can be verified even if their ear tags are removed, Lamb said. I'm in the process of going through their pedigrees, she said. Many were embryo transfer calves, So they are high pedigreed animals. They all have a genotype, so you can take a hair or tissue sample. The thefts come as rising beef prices make dairy calves scarcer, driving up prices. According to a May 14th report from livestock marketer Empire Livestock, a 350-pound heifer calf currently sells for between $1,610 and $3,360. With the value of animals right now, with high beef prices, you hear stories like this, Lamb said. We never thought it would happen to us, but here we are in this situation. Hopefully they are healthy and safe. We'd love to be able to get them back to the farm. The Genesee County Sheriff's Office is seeking any security camera footage neighbors can provide of the truck, investigator Jonathan Dimig said Tuesday. Anybody in the town of Alabama or adjacent townships, whether they're Orleans County, Oakfield, even in Niagara County, if they have any camera footage of what appears to be a truck with a stock trailer traveling around in the time frame from midnight on the 23rd until 4 a.m. on May 24th, that might be really helpful. Anyone with knowledge of the situation is advised to contact the Genesee County Sheriff's Office at 585-343-5000. Another article from the front page: Pump prices retreat as oil prices drop, by Ben Beagle. Gas and oil prices were retreating Thursday from the highest prices in 4 years, report both AAA and Gas Buddy. The national average price for a gallon of gasoline is $4.49, down 3 cents from last Monday. 1 year ago, the price was $3.18, according to AAA. In New York State, the average is $4.59, down 2 cents from last Monday. A year ago, the state average was $3.13, according to AAA. Gas Buddy reported a national average price for a gallon of gasoline at $4.45 per gallon on Tuesday, down 6.6 cents in the past week, based of reports from more than 150,000 gas stations nationwide. The national average remains 41 cents higher than the average price from a month ago and $1.32 from a year ago, based on Gas Buddy data. Gas Buddy reports a decline of 2.8 cents per gallon in New York State, for an average price of $4.55 per gallon, based on a survey of 6,188 stations in the state. Prices are up 40.7 cents per gallon from a month ago and 1.47 cents compared to a year ago. Much of the decline came after renewed optimism surrounding a potential U.S.-Iran agreement pushed oil prices lower. Easing geopolitical pressure on energy markets, said Patrick DeHaan, head of petroleum analysis at Gas Buddy. In many states, that drop created breathing room after recent price cycles and allowed pump prices to fall again. DeHaan cautioned that the relief could be short-lived. While oil continued drifting lower over the weekend on hopes of a deal, new CENTCOM reports involving U.S. defensive strikes highlight how quickly the outlook could change, DeHaan said. For now, motorists may continue to see some relief, but it remains too early to know how long the decline will last. Across upstate cities tracked by AAA Western and Central New York, gas prices decreased as much as 3 cents per gallon. Average prices on Tuesday were Batavia, $4.57, down 2 cents from last Monday. Buffalo, $4.58, down 1 cent. Rochester, $4.58, down 1 cent. Syracuse is unchanged at $4.58. Rome is $4.56, down 2 cents. Watertown, $4.60, down 3 cents. Elmira, $4.51, down 2 cents. And Ithaca, $4.60, no change. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Batavia Daily News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Gas Buddy reported average prices of $4.57 per gallon. Rochester down 0.4 cents from a week ago, and $4.55 in Syracuse, unchanged from last week. Among Glow region counties, average prices range from $4.573 in Genesee County to $4.608 in Orleans County. Livingston County saw an average of $4.598 on Tuesday, and Wyoming County was $4.607 at Wyoming County. Prices at the pump are retreating as oil prices also decrease, down to $92 to $98 per barrel compared to $97 to $104 per barrel a week ago, according to AAA. Average gasoline prices declined in 40 states over the last week, as falling oil prices helped offset earlier price cycling in many markets, bringing relief to motorists after several states had already seen sharp increases. According to the latest data from the Energy Information Administration, gasoline demand is up while total domestic gasoline supply has decreased. Meanwhile, gasoline production is on the rise. Diesel prices are also on the decline this week, with the national average of $5.58, down 5 cents from last week, but up from $3.53 a year ago. The New York average for diesel fuel is $5.91, down 3 cents from last week, and up from $3.88 last year, according to AAA. Gas Buddy reports the national average price of diesel at $5.57 per gallon, a decrease of 4 cents from a week ago. From Section A3 in the Batavia Daily News. Animal shelters awarded state grants. Orleans, Livingston counties received $750,000 for upgrades by Ben Beagle and Mike Patinella. County-run animal shelters in Orleans and Livingston counties have been awarded more than $750,000 in funding from a state program aimed to improve and expand facilities for dogs, cats, and other animals awaiting adoption. The Orleans County Animal Shelter was awarded $500,000, and Livingston County was awarded $256,302 from New York's Companion Animal Capital Projects Fund. In Orleans County, the grant will be used for kennel installation, upgraded fencing, and HVAC systems, structural repairs, and drainage improvements. Livingston County will use the grant money for an oversight system, install a roof awning, and extend several dog runs. Competitive grants were awarded to shelters based on a need assessment, detailed project description, and reasonableness of cost. The grants, administered by the State Department of Agriculture and Markets, were among 31 awards worth nearly $10 million made to animal care organizations statewide. The projects funded this year include updated living spaces, expanded medical care areas, and other infrastructure upgrades. Governor Kathy Hochul's office announced the awards May 22nd as part of the 8th round of the program's funding awards. From cats and dogs to small animals like rabbits, guinea pigs, and more, pets are family, Hochul said in a news release. Many of these beloved companion animals start their journey at an animal shelter or humane society. So I'm proud to continue supporting these essential organizations through New York's historic Companion Animal Capital Projects Fund. This funding is going to make a real difference, helping to better equip these vital facilities with the tools they need to keep our furry friends safe and well cared for as they wait to meet their new families. New York was the first state to establish a program to fund capital projects for animal shelters, according to the governor's office. The program was created in 2017. It has since invested more than $48 million in 150 shelter improvement projects statewide. The State Department of Agriculture and Markets Division of Animal Industry, which administers the Companion Animal Capital Projects Fund, regulates dog licensing, sets standards for humane care of seized dogs, and the inspection of municipal shelters, administers the Pet Dealer Inspection Program, and oversees the contractor, the State Animal Population Control Program. The division also promotes sustainable animal production, agriculture, and the safety of the animal origin food supply through regulatory and cooperative educational efforts with various agencies, both public and private. Dansville Central sees cost, function as factors in EV bus defeat by Den Foltz. The Dansville Central School District Superintendent said cost and function were likely factors in resident rejecting a proposal to purchase an electric school bus. We have a community that supports our district. They don't want to see us struggle through a transition that doesn't appear to be feasible, Superintendent Kelly Zimmerman said in an interview with the Livingston County News. Voters defeated the district's proposition to purchase an electric bus 309 to 95 on May 19th. The next day, reports surfaced from Albany indicating a delay in electric school bus mandates was forthcoming as part of the state budget process. The electric bus mandate was passed as part of Section 3638 of the state's education laws in 2022. The law said that by 2027, all new bus purchases must be electric buses, and that all schools would be required to replace their entire fleet with electric buses by 2035. But Dansville and other rural districts have concerns about the mandate. Wendell Associates completed a feasibility study for our district, which all school districts in New York State were required to do. And what that yielded was, out of all of our current runs, we currently have 4 runs in our district boundaries that cannot be accomplished by an EV bus, Zimmerman said. I suspect there may be more, she said. Areas around Dansville have some challenging terrain, and winter weather adds additional complications to the routes. Zimmerman and the board have been listening to feedback from the community at budget presentations. We did have a number of community members who attended, and some concerns that were voiced at that meeting included the terrain, particularly in the areas of South Dansville and up to Sparta, where the weather is often different at the top of the hill than at the bottom of the hill, Zimmerman said. Some residents cited the widely circulated letter written by Naples Superintendent of Schools Kevin Schwartz in March, arguing that the costs associated with the electric buses could be the most pressing concern. The feasibility study completed for Dansville seems to have confirmed residents' suspicions. We have about 26 large buses in our fleet. And what the study also showed is that NYSERDA NYSERDA is offering grants to aid in this transition. A grant covers about half of the cost of an EV bus. EV buses, on average, cost around $500,000 apiece. NYSERDA will cover about half of that to bring the cost to the district down to approximately what you would pay for a gas or diesel bus. Maybe a little more, but a little bit more. So in this study, it suggested that Dansville would qualify for NYSERDA grants for up to the first 14 buses in our fleet, not the last 12, which is hugely problematic because we cannot afford to do that. We simply cannot, she said. A full conversion by 2035 just is not possible to achieve, Zimmerman said. The decision by the board to separate the electric bus from the rest of the transportation and maintenance propositions was a calculated decision after Zimmerman and the board had heard this feedback from residents. It allowed the people of the district to have a voice in the decision, and it gave the district more points when applying for a zero-emission busing extension waiver with the New York State Education Department. The district had planned to apply for a 2-year waiver if the proposition was voted down, but they may not need to do that since a 5-year delay in the electric bus mandate is poised to pass as part of the state budget process. Yesterday's budget bill included another extension related to electric school bus mandates. While a 5-year extension is a start, once again, Albany is simply kicking the can down the road instead of addressing the real issue, said Assemblywoman Batavia Daily in a statement on Thursday. Our local school districts have already done the studies. The results are clear. These mandates are not practical for many rural districts, and they are not economically favorable for taxpayers. Schools are already facing rising costs, staffing challenges, and unfunded mandates. Forcing districts into policies that do not work for their communities is not the answer, Bailey said. Zimmerman is cautious about the extension, however. Basically, nothing has changed yet because we don't have a state budget yet, she said. It's very likely there will be a 5-year moratorium on this requirement. It doesn't mean that we can rest on our laurels. We still have to forward planning and re-examine the transition timeline that we had established prior and recalculate the fiscal implications of that and how that affects our bus replacement cycle long term, Zimmerman said. In addition to her duties as superintendent, Zimmerman also sits on the executive council for the New York State Council of School Superintendents and the Rural Schools Association of New York. I'm in Albany quite a bit discussing this topic, among others, with the state education department, with lobbyists and other advocacy efforts. So I have my finger on the pulse of these mandates as they are evolving and changing. That gives me the luxury of being able to anticipate changes and to position our district to be prepared for those. But the question of the propositions remains. What happens when voters defeat propositions to buy new electric buses? Does the state withhold transportation funding? And nobody at the state has the answer to that yet. What I foresee would happen first is that they will withhold aid. Transportation aid will not flow to the purchase of anything but EV buses. And if a community continues to defeat that proposition and we are forced to transition, and carry the burden of the entire cost, that won't be good for anybody, Zimmerman said. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Batavia Daily News and the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. From page A3 also is Blotter, Batavia. Adalberto Torres, 59 of Rochester, was charged with misdemeanor drug possession after he was found with cocaine while at Batavia Downs, Genesee County Sheriff's deputies said. He is to appear at a later date in town court. Batavia. Jared K. Fothiathis, 31, was charged with felony second-degree assault for allegedly assaulting another inmate at Genesee County Jail. He was arraigned and returned to jail. Batavia. Craig D. Brown, 45, was charged with felony second-degree assault for allegedly assaulting another inmate at Genesee County Jail. He is to appear at a later date in Cap Court. Batavia. Jennifer L. Frazier, 38, of Stafford, was charged with abandonment of animals, Genesee County Sheriff's deputy said. She is accused of abandoning her dog on Pratt Road and is to appear at a later date in town court. Batavia. 2 people faced charges after deputies were called to Batavia Downs for a report of people with drug paraphernalia, Genesee County Sheriff's deputies said. Hillary D. Russell and Louis Zabo both possessed methamphetamine, and Russell also had a fake identification card to enter the Downs. Both were charged with misdemeanor drug possession, and Russell also was charged with criminal impersonation. Batavia. Michael J. Pittman, 31, of Mount Morris, was charged with petty larceny for stealing from Target. He was also charged with resisting arrest. Batavia. City police charged the following people. Avian Bethel, 21, of Attica, was charged with burglary, criminal contempt of court, obstruction of governmental administration, reckless driving, unlawful fleeing, and numerous traffic violations. Police said Bethel forced his way into a residence on East Main Street in violation of an order of protection, and then led police on a pursuit that ended on Putnam Road, where Bethel attempted to run. He was committed to Genesee County Jail. Billy L. Harper, 48, of Batavia, was charged with felony criminal mischief for keying a car. Tanya Weber, 42, of Batavia, was charged with grand larceny and harassment for stealing a cell phone and then hitting an officer. Elizabeth A. Lindner, 39, of Batavia, was charged 6 times between May 12th and 18th for 2 counts of trespass, criminal trespass, 2 counts of soliciting, and misdemeanor drug possession. Heather L. Furson, 49, of Batavia, was charged with cruelty to animals for hitting a dog numerous times. Charlene M. Poole, 55, of Batavia, was charged with misdemeanor drug possession for having cocaine during a traffic stop. Joshua Vernacini, 21, of Batavia, was charged with DWI. Sandra Marcel, 54, of Batavia, was charged with misdemeanor drug possession for having drugs during an incident in December. Jeremiah T. Jones, 52, of Batavia, was charged with menacing for physically menacing a person. Christopher Wyckoff, 41, of Caledonia, was charged with DWI after a complaint of an allegedly intoxicated driver at Wendy's drive-thru. Fawn Dockstader, 39, of Batavia, was charged with harassment for threatening to stab a person. Haley P. Gregory, 26, of Batavia, was charged with DWI after a complaint at a gas station that a person tried to buy alcohol and then left in a car. From Section A4 of Wednesday, May 27th issue of the Batavia Daily News, from the opinion section. These last months of school are an opportunity, not just a drag, by Anthony De Palma. Spring can be a dreadful time to be in school. The end of the year is in sight, but with weeks of mandatory work still to be done, daydreaming students are tempted by the miracle taking place outside to ditch their books and wish they were anywhere but the classroom. And their teachers wonder why they ever return to the classroom instead of trying their hand at commercial fishing or anything else. Most have learned to simply grit their teeth and push forward until the school year mercifully ends. But there's another way, one paved by the toughest prep school in America, run by Benedictine monks in the ragged heart of Newark, New Jersey. St. Benedict's, widely recognized as a leader in urban education, shows that rather than being full of dread until the end of the school year, these weeks in May and June can be turned into a breakout session that highlights experiential learning, setting up students, especially those in secondary schools, for success in ways they never imagined. I recently spent several years at the school reporting for a book, and I saw how this approach could be successful in other schools willing to give it a try. After St. Benedict's finishes its winter term at the end of April, it begins a 5-week spring phase with its own curriculum and special schedule. Most classrooms are emptied, and teachers offer elective courses they designed. Some highlight practical life skills, such as Real Men Cook, offerings including social justice and science, and art, nature, and protest break out of the educational silos to combine subjects in new ways that the students haven't encountered before. Each class has reading and writing requirements, attendance is mandatory, and students receive grades as well as teacher evaluations. The most remarkable endeavor of St. Benedict's spring term, the backpacking project, is a requirement for all freshmen to move on to their second year. For more than half a century, St. Benedict's freshmen all have had to hike roughly 55 miles on the Appalachian Trail through the mountains of northwestern New Jersey, carrying on their backs their tents, sleeping bags, pots and pans, and everything else they need to survive the week-long trek. Many of the city-bound students have never spent a single night in the woods, and they all will have to make it to the end of the trial by week's end. Before they step into the woods, the freshmen spend several weeks preparing. Glenn Cassidy, a 30-year faculty veteran and director of the backpacking project since 2007, assembles all 185 or so freshmen on the first day of spring term to read them the riot act about the project. Rule number 1, he tells them, barking the order like a military commander, is stay together. He regales them with stories of backpacking mishaps over the years, including his own experience when he was a student at St. Benedict's. A member of his hiking team who was responsible for carrying the tent poles missed the bus to the mountains, condemning the rest of his team to several miserable nights without a standing tent. As I hiked with the students, I saw how the weeks of physical preparation and the drilling in teamwork prepared them to complete tasks they never imagined they could. I watched as leaders emerged, and I noticed how empathy seeped through the crowd as the heavy packs of laggards and weaker students were offloaded and distributed to others who were determined to ensure that everyone survived the week-long test. To complete the course and receive a grade, the students must keep a journal and write an essay on what the trail meant for them. Reading through many, I realized just how much this trek in the woods meant to these city-hardened kids. Walking through forests and climbing mountains isn't just about getting from A to B, one 14-year-old wrote. It's about finding out who you really are. He came back from the mountains saying, "If I could do the AT, I can do anything." St. Benedict's is itself a testament to survival. Founded in 1868, it was a cornerstone of Newark's immigrant community. But after the 1967 race riots ripped apart the city's social contract, enrollment declined, and racial attitudes hardened. By 1972, the monks voted to close the school. Half then left for a suburban monastery, but the other half stood fast, determined to reimagine what a prep school could be. They extended the school year to 11 months, instituted a strict honor code, and set high academic standards. From those earliest days, the monks confronted the end-of-the-year syndrome pragmatically, replacing regular classroom instruction with out-of-classroom electives. Most schools do not have the luxury of St. Benedict's 11-month school year to experiment with a full term of elective courses, and public school districts would be hard-pressed to mandate a week-long hike. But St. Benedict's shows that shared experiences can be an effective method of teaching and learning. Incorporating a special project into regular courses would help keep students' interests alive in any school, and there's nothing better than the spring sun to cast new light on old subjects. Anthony DePalma, a former education reporter and foreign correspondent for the New York Times, is the author of, among other books, On This Ground, Hardship and Hope at the Toughest Prep School in America. Orange County communities hit by chemical crisis are safe for return, officials say. Los Angeles, the vast majority of the 50,000 people evacuated because of a damaged chemical tank officials feared would explode began returning home, and officials said the conditions in the area is safe. I want to reassure everyone who is outside the new evacuation zone that when you go home, you can feel safe, said Orange County Health Officer Dr. Regina Chincio Kwong. There was no contamination, there were no fumes, there were no vapors that came from this incident. There is no leak. She said people who live in areas where evacuations were lifted should feel safe to return. You should feel comfortable going home, even if you're across the street from that new zone line. Pope says AI, artificial intelligence, should be disarmed to avoid dominating humanity. By Flavio Rotundi and Alessandra Migliaccio. Pope Leo XIV said artificial intelligence should be disarmed to protect humanity from its dangers, adding his voice to a heated debate over the extent to which governments should regulate a technology that is reshaping the world. In a landmark address to the Catholic Church, which included a video presentation with images of the Industrial Revolution, World War II, and the Berlin Wall falling, the Pope called for making AI more human-friendly. He said the technology needs to be freed from monopolistic control, shifting away from using it to achieve geopolitical or commercial gains. To disarm means discrediting the assumption that technical power automatically confers the right to govern, the Pope said Monday in his new encyclical to the faithful. To disarm does not mean rejecting technology, but preventing it from dominating humanity. By waiting so publicly on the need to protect humans in the age of artificial intelligence, AI, the first American pope in history has potentially put himself on a collision course with U.S. President Donald Trump, who favors deregulation of the rapidly evolving technology to maintain a competitive edge against China. The 70-year-old pope is joining a furious debate over how far AI models should be constrained amid fears about their potential to wreak havoc on the banking system, to select targets for military attacks, and eventually to replace humans in vast swaths of decision-making. The release of the document, called Magnifica Humanitas, which means magnificent humanity in Latin, marks the pontiff's most consequential act since becoming the head of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics a year ago. Encyclicals, as these letters are known, are a way for popes to provide moral guidance on the biggest challenges of their times, including hot-button issues like climate change and migration. A mathematician by training, Leo also warned specifically about the dangers of using computing in warfare and losing track of the moral considerations, saying no algorithm can make war morally acceptable. AI does not remove the intrinsic inhumanity of conflict. Indeed, it can only bring about conflict more quickly and render it more impersonal, the Pope said. He warned against the possibility that some may consider armed conflict as an effective way of diverting attention from domestic problems and a cynical tool for managing difficulties. His comments came as the unveiling of Mythos, an artificial intelligence tool by Anthropic PBC that can identify unknown flaws in IT systems, has triggered anxiety across the globe over the past months. In raising the alarm on the risks of unregulated AI, it's telling that the Vatican extended an invitation to Anthropic's co-founder, Christopher Olah, an expert of machine learning. The maker of the popular Claude chatbot has clashed with the Trump administration over the use of its technology for war and surveillance. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Batavia Daily News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We need informed critics who will tell the labs when we are failing. We need moral voices that the incentives cannot bend. Vice President J.D. Vance, a Catholic convert who was close to Silicon Valley billionaire Peter Thiel, an early investor in OpenAI, hinted at the brewing tension. Recently, Leo and Trump sparred over the Pope's opposition to the war in Iran. I think when the leader of the world's largest Christian denomination speaks on an issue like that, it's certainly going to have some influence, and I'm sure it'll contain a lot of insights, Vance said at a press briefing on May 19th, some of which I'll probably agree with, some of which I may not. Thiel was in Rome earlier this year for some much-publicized closed-door lectures on the Antichrist. In response, Vatican advisor Father Paolo Benanti attacked Thiel's libertarian views in an op-ed calling them a sustained act of heresy. The Roman Catholic Church has been increasingly vocal about its concerns on AI, making the case that the powerful tool requires rules to protect human dignity and the common good. For Leo, his clear inspiration is Pope Leo XIII, who guided the Church during the First Industrial Revolution and wrote the Rerum Novarum encyclical. Not only did the current Pope choose Leo as his name to honor his 19th century predecessor, he is drawing a direct line between the disruption that machine-driven mass production unleashed on workers than to what AI is doing to workers today. The Pope wants to make sure that what happens with AI is not just based on economics, not just based on how rich a bunch of billionaires can become, and that there are guardrails on it and how it is used, said Father Thomas Rees, a senior analyst and Catholic scholar, in an interview. From reports of chatbots steering users towards suicide to the apocalyptic predictions of mass unemployment, the topic of AI is divisive and emotional. Still, Leo's style is more understated than that of Pope Francis, who made a historic address to a group of 7 leaders back in 2024, where he warned them not to lose control of AI. Today, among the goods that are universally intended for everyone, we must also include new forms of property such as patents, algorithms, digital platforms, technological infrastructure, and data, the Pope wrote. The danger, he says, is when technology begins to dictate what matters and what can be discarded, reducing human beings to mere cogs in a system driven toward ever greater efficiency. From page 5, A5 of the Batavia Daily News, Health and Family. ER doctors see rise in cannabis users. Stomach pain, scromiting, and compulsive hot showering are sending them there. The morning after Christmas, 37-year-old Taylor Armendariz awoke in her South Jersey apartment with stomach pain and nausea like nothing she had ever experienced. A self-described avid cannabis user, she had smoked before her holiday meal of beef Wellington, mashed potatoes, and ice cream-topped apple pie. In the stoner state of mind, I was like, let's go outside and smoke before we do this so we can really do this, she said. I was ready for this killer meal, and I thought I overdid it. Even after vomiting until her stomach was empty, she still felt so nauseous that she wanted to make herself throw up more. Her boyfriend took her to an urgent care clinic. The doctor there referred her to the hospital for possible appendicitis. At Virtua Voorhees Hospital Emergency Department, she underwent an EKG, a CT scan, and blood work, all negative. Once home, she continued to retch. She decided to shower before returning to the hospital. As soon as the hot water hit her, the nausea and pain eased, only to return as soon as she dried off. On her return ER visit, she told the doctor the shower helped. The doctor immediately suspected her illness was tied to a syndrome that can unexpectedly emerge in longtime marijuana users, cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, CHS. Feeling better in a hot bath or shower is a telltale sign. Another clue is what doctors call scromiting, or screaming while vomiting. Emergency medicine doctors across the Philadelphia region say they are grappling with a surge in cases at a time when changing state laws have created unprecedented access to legal and potent marijuana. 2 Jefferson Health hospitals, Thomas Jefferson University Hospital in Center City and Jefferson Methodist Hospital in South Philadelphia, documented at least 300 cases in patients largely from their late teens to 40s in the fiscal year ending July 2025, a 3-fold increase from 2 years prior. At North Philadelphia's Temple University Hospital, staff can often diagnose it from the signature vomiting sound patients make. St. Christopher's Hospital for Children is seeing 3 cases a week in patients ages 16 to 22. Up to a few years ago, we saw no cases, said Richard Hamilton, Chief of Emergency Medicine at the North Philadelphia Hospital. Hamilton, who is also a toxicologist, was pleased last fall when federal health regulators recognized CHS as a medical condition, giving it a diagnosis code known as ICD-10 code to help track cases. But many patients have trouble accepting the diagnosis. Patients will say, "It can't be that because I've been smoking for years," Hamilton said. Some will argue that cannabis is known to alleviate nausea and vomiting, particularly for cancer patients undergoing chemo. That might be true for low-level cannabis use, but not if you're sitting on your porch smoking for 5 hours at a time in a cannabis fog. What's driving the uptick? The syndrome is now so prevalent that many local ER doctors have started asking patients who come in vomiting whether they use cannabis, how much and for how long, and whether hot showers help. Sometimes how they smell is a giveaway. They come in smelling like skunk, said R. Alan Schubert, lead doctor at Virtua Mount Holly Hospital's emergency department, adding that he would still rather deal with health issues from legal and regulated cannabis than black market drugs. Higher levels of THC, the psychoactive compound in cannabis, are a big part of what is driving the uptick in cases of CHS, said Corey London, co-director of Jefferson Addiction Multidisciplinary Service and an emergency medicine doctor. This is not the 70s where you're getting 2 or 3% cannabis off of a tree that you are then smoking, London said. Now there are these horrifying, almost methamphetamine-like distillates and crystal forms of cannabis that are 100% cannabinoids. Lauren Murphy, an emergency medicine doctor at Temple, likened today's potent agriculturally engineered cannabis to the cautionary tale in the movie Jurassic Park. We never asked if we should, we only asked if we could, Murphy said. We never knew there would be problems once it became more concentrated. Unprecedented accessibility to marijuana is also a driving factor. So far, 24 states, including New Jersey and Delaware, have legalized recreational marijuana for adults. In Pennsylvania, medical marijuana patients can legally buy it from state-approved dispensaries. After New Jersey legalized recreational use in 2022, highways became dotted with dispensaries. A single serving edible, such as a gummy, is legally capped at 10 milligrams of THC, but licensed dispensaries can sell 100 milligram packages with 10 gummies. Customers are allowed to purchase up to 10 packages, totaling 1,000 milligrams per visit. You no longer have to go to your brother's friend's brother, whoever your dealer was. You just go to a dispensary, said Rachel Harrows, a toxicology and addiction specialist and emergency medicine doctor at Cooper University Hospital in Camden. We've never had this vast high exposure. Studies show that emergency departments have seen CHS cases double in states where cannabis was legalized, both medically and recreationally, according to an article published last year in the medical journal Sirius. The article also highlighted research showing that about 30% of chronic cannabis users develop the syndrome. It's not rare in that population, Harrows said. Some patients return to the ER multiple times. Doctors at Nemours Children's Hospital in Delaware saw the same patient 6 times between January 1st and mid-April, according to emergency medicine Dr. Katie Giordano. Giordano said patients can suffer dehydration, electrolyte abnormalities, and malnutrition. In severe cases, it can be life-threatening. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Wednesday, May 27th issue of the Batavia News. We read from the Batavia Daily News every Saturday at 9 a.m. Your reader has been Elizabeth Ortel. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the East Aurora Advertiser. At 11 o'clock, we have the Niagara Gazette. And at noon, we have the Dunkirk Observer. Stay with us for these readings and more throughout the day. Radio Reading mails out a large print program schedule to our listeners every other month. If you have not received a Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service large print program schedule in the mail, please call us at 716-821-5555. We will make sure that you receive one every other month. A Braille version of the schedule is also available upon request. Our number again is 716-821-5555. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability